Welcome, everybody, to episode 40 of Astrology Unplugged. I'm Rick DiClemente with starself.com, and tonight we'll be talking a lot about the parts of the body. And my friend Elke Hutton will be joining us from Saskatchewan. She's a very fine medical astrologer. When we get into that, I want to refer to her expertise at certain times. Before I do that, you may look to your chat messages if you're having any trouble with the volume on your microphone. John is sending you a text on how to control that microphone. As you all know, and this is very hard for non-astrologers, it's very hard for astrologers to understand what Mars and Pluto are doing now, and they're going to hit each other in 2 days. It's very simple in one way. Pluto's been sitting in Capricorn, going through Capricorn for 13, 15 years, from 08 until 23. And every time Mars hits opposite, or Mars gets at a right angle, or Mars gets conjunct, or Mars gets at a right angle, it triggers what the Pluto's doing. When a big planet's sitting on you, even in a house where there's no planets, it's just sitting in a house, big planets are having phenomenal impact on your psyche, your unconscious mind. If Pluto's sitting on one of your planets, then all the more jolly. But it means in this area, and I've talked so much about it, what it means for each sign, if Pluto's sitting in the Capricorn area of your chart, and it's changing this part of you, and it's inspiring you to change that part of you, what happens when Mars comes along, and Mars is coming opposite, and Mars always hits when it's a degree away. Pluto's at 19. Mars is now at 17. And of course, I saw this coming months ago. I've been telling you about July 1st for 4 months now. And on Saturday, it will be a degree away from Pluto. And why is that significant? The number one reason is because our fearless leader has Pluto sitting on his sun. Not in his birth chart, but in his death, in his statutory chart, his state in the world, his position in the world. And this chart, when it gets hard, is when Humpty Dumpty falls off the wall. That's exactly what happens. So Pluto's sitting on his sun. It's been sitting on his sun. Did you ever get a feeling like the whole world's fighting against him? Well, it is and it isn't. Okay, there's really imaginary forces battling against him, and there are real forces battling against him. They're both. But now Mars is involved, but Mars is with, Mars is with his sun. Pluto's opposite his sun, and Mars is with his sun. And I've been telling you for months, as Mars comes with his sun opposing Pluto, he's liable to launch against his against his known enemies. He's very liable to launch against. So this thing with Syria and this thing brewing with Iran is very real. It may happen. But let's get off of that. Just the fact that it's hitting in your chart does not mean doom. If you feel deep need to change, it's symbolized by Pluto and what house it's in, then Mars is here to say, well, are you acting on it? That's simple. If you feel deep need to change, sweeping changes in this area of your life or that area, and I've already mapped this out. It's already on the videos on YouTube. I told you what Pluto's doing in each of your charts. Well, Mars is here and saying, okay, where's the beef? What have you done? What have you done? What are you doing? That's why Mars is tough. If you're acting, Mars may be a little aggressive. You might fall down, hurt your ankle. You're trying, it won't be so bad. If you're hiding, it will kick your butt. Why? Because it's the part of you that's sick of listening to the other part of you. That's why. If you're making excuses, there's a part of you that's sick of it. It doesn't want to hear it anymore. And that's Mars, Pluto. They're not kind energies. If you're trying and you're making efforts, Mars will really help you. I've written a nice article calling Pluto will help you. It's in my list on my website, starself.com. If you're hiding from it, it will find you because it's not out there. It's in here. But if you're trying, honestly trying, yourself, your inner self knows when you're honestly trying. And the real shame of this, and I hate to be biblical or evangelical, but the real shame of this is we forget to ask for help. That's why I got a tattoo. I'm not going to explain it to you. This is a tattoo just reminds me to do a certain spiritual thing. I couldn't put a reminder out here, so I put it on my hand so I'll see it. That's why I got it. I do not know what to do. Please help me. Whatever prayer you want to form. I'm not sure. I got some ideas. I will follow. I want to do good. I really am not sure what I'm doing. Please give me some guidance. Or as A Course in Miracles says, please give me another way of looking at things. Mars and Pluto will come out of nowhere and do unbelievable things to help you. So all these people that get scared when I write about Mars and Pluto, it's understandable. They don't understand the dynamics. They don't understand how you work with it. And as early astrologers, you're always vibrating scared of Mars because that's typical until you get used to it, and then you don't worry so much. Today, I had my little warning. Today, mine was Mars, Pluto, and it was a little warning. And I understand what the warning message was. And I was appreciative I didn't get hurt. And I go on from here. Now, a couple of nights ago, I was talking with, hi Karen, nice to see you. I was talking with the Holy Spirit, and as I usually do on Tuesdays, and I try to feel for what does he want me to talk about? What do the masses want to hear? I've talked about so many subjects, it's very difficult to think of something each week. And up came the body. And I really didn't want to talk about Pluto, so we're done with that for tonight. So I started to think about the human body. And when you think about astrology, there's a direct correlation to the body. And my good friend Elke Hutton from Saskatchewan will be joining in tonight on many different parts of this because she's a very good medical astrologer. She does a different type of astrology than I do. Most astrologers do. But we're going to talk about the body. And I'm going to come out and say this. A lot of people have enough knowledge to be dangerous. There are a lot of really half-baked astrologers out there. And they'll tell you this about your kidneys. They'll tell you this about your back. They'll tell you this about headaches. And all you got to do is say, how many people have you seen with this? Have you seen 2, 1, or have you seen 150? Because if they haven't seen 150, don't talk about it. I mean, astrology is a wicked thing in the terms of we've got you under our thumb. You have to believe what we tell you. You're very vulnerable. And that's why I require when people start to confront me about stuff, I just say what one of the famous astrologers said, I've studied this, have you? How many charts have you done? How many charts have you looked at? I don't try to talk anybody into believing it. I see every reason in the world not to believe it. I can't believe it, I believe it. But I've seen evidence over and over and over and over. Susan, I'm not going to talk about the harmonic chart in a medical thing tonight. Okay, it's just not going to fit. So we're going to talk with Elke tonight about the parts of the body, and we're going to talk about planets and signs. There are some good books on medical astrology. What we're talking about is not medical astrology. It's part of it. We're talking tonight basically, and Elke, I don't want to get lost in deep discussion on each of these. I want to give people an idea. Why Mars in Aries rules the top of the head, and why it works all the way down to Pisces in the feet. Now, there are a lot of things you can do, a lot of things by studying this that you can help yourself with, but you're not to come out tonight and say, oh, I've got a lot of Saturn, no wonder I have bad knees. I'm a double Capricorn with a very strong Saturn. I have no problem at all with my knees. When my second Saturn return was forming, right at the time it was forming, all of a sudden I started getting pain in my right knee for no reason. Then it went away. And I'm sure Elke can talk about a lot of situations like that. So we're going to tell you about how the parts of the body align with the zodiac, but don't come out of here with excuses. I got problems because that planet's here. That's not what we're intending. We're trying to educate. We're not know-it-alls. We're going to educate you about how the relationship is, tell you what we have seen, and we're both smart enough not to tell you about the one guy we've seen or the two women we've seen. When I talk about Virgos, I talk about 600 that I've talked to. And if you don't do that many, then don't talk about it till you're ready. Do everybody a favor. Okay, now I don't know why I've been thinking about my ankle lately. It has to do with Uranus, rules that part of the body. And here I go and I injure it today. And Uranus has to do with following your instinct. Are you being yourself? Are you hiding yourself? Are you denying yourself? Are you being yourself? In a couple ways recently, I've been denying myself. I've not been following my truth, and that's why I got the injury, which is a warning. It's a warning. Now, when you talk about Aries, we'll start at the top. Aries people are very headstrong, and they do not learn like the rest of us. They need to jump first and think about later. And the parents that with good meaning are trying to caution them before they leave are hurting them. Now, some Aries people have a lot of Cancer, a lot of Capricorn, but generally, Aries people, that's why they have that real refreshing look out front. They're very dynamic, and they need to jump first because they're all about how sharp their instincts are. And what area do you think they bump all the time? Okay, I'm going to leave you unmuted. What area do you think Aries are constantly having trouble with? Elke?
The head.
Bumping their head. They're bumping their head all the time. They have major injuries, minor injuries. They have migraines. What have you seen?
Well, this one lady, she's just told me 7 scars on her head. Aries.
Now, that doesn't mean you're going to have these.
No.
You have a propensity towards that. Now, I don't know why. Let's say you have a big car crash tonight, and there's a real big Saturn thing on you, and you get out of it tonight, but your knee's really badly messed up. I don't know why astrology is so magical. Saturn rules the knees. I don't know why it's that intelligent, but it's not just a chance. It's not just coincidence.
No.
Your knee had to be hurt. Not your ankle, not your foot, not your thigh. It had to be your knee. That's just the way it works. Now, we can theorize till we're blue. But Aries are pretty much just that part of the body. And they're very headstrong. I've told you they're the hood ornament on a car. They're the car without the brake. They're the car without the rear view mirror. They're headstrong. And if you've been around a lot of Aries, a lot of time they just barge right in. They don't mean any harm. They're just excited and adventurous. Taurus people. Now remember, sometimes we'll talk about Mars, sometimes we'll talk about Aries. They're similar. One is the ruler, one is the planet, one is the sign. Both of them rule similar parts of the body. Now we start going down the body. Taurus people, it's amazing how many Tauruses. It's the neck, it's the throat. The athletes have great big huge throats, and it's very common that they get throat cancer. There are many, many Tauruses that won't get it, but it's very common. What do you find with Taurus?
Mostly thyroid issues, a lot of it. And it's when they don't speak up, when you feel you can't say something, then it's like that, somebody is throttling you or cutting your ear off, and you cannot vocalize your voice. You cannot express your thoughts and your feelings.
Now, Karen just lost her, Karen D. She just lost her partner, Taurus of many years. Usually, Tauruses don't have the problem with speaking up. Usually, that's not the issue. Throat problems can definitely be from not speaking your truth, yes, and that particular chakra. Now, I don't know why Taurus rules that area, but you look at Taurus people, look at them physically. Oh, by the way, I better do that and stay in sync here. Tauruses have big throats, big necks.
I mean, you look at a Taurus itself, how big a Taurus's neck is. He looks at you and there's this massive neck coming at you.
And Aries people, I'm sorry, I forgot. Aries almost always have a very profound forehead, a protruding nose. Aries and Geminis, especially the women and the men too. The Aries and Geminis, the early signs of the zodiac, will stay thin. There are so many actresses and actors in Hollywood that are Aries and their body just stays thin. It's because they're a young sign. Gemini. What is the woman's name that married Tom Cruise?
Nicole Kidman?
Yeah.
Before?
A perfect example of a Gemini body. She's very thin and waif. The Gemini bodies are very young looking. The Aries body are usually very thin. Protruding forehead, protruding nose is usually the kicker there. Also, Aries men, because of that, they can come across more than other men as very handsome. A lot of times, Aries men are the guys with all the women because they're very handsome. It's a very masculine energy, Mars. Now, let's go down, and we'll come back and forth because it's complex. You can't just read a straight story. Gemini is a very intriguing sign. Geminis, oftentimes the women are small bosom. Geminis are like Michael J. Fox. You think they look very childlike before he got his illness, and even now he looks young. Look at Bob Hope when he was 100 years old. They look very young. Gemini is this area. The hands, the arms, the shoulder, all the way across to the other arm. I don't know why, but that's just how it is. So if you have something hit your Mercury, ruler of Gemini, you may end up with injuries in that area. But if you notice, Delta.
And that is why Michael J. Fox has Parkinson's, because Parkinson's disease is caused by an issue with the nerves, and Mercury rules the nerves, and so he has issues with the communication and the myelin sheath around his nerves, and that is classic Gemini Mercury issue.
And that's very similar to MS, and I will guarantee you it's because at the time he got it, he was not speaking his truth. I'm not going to judge the man, but I will guarantee you that's what brought it on. Doesn't matter what his agent thought or his family thought, but inside he wasn't speaking his truth, and thus the backup and the aberration to the nervous system. Very true.
Well, one thing to deal with is if you identify the core conflict in your chart. That's why astrology is so useful, because there's always a core conflict. Like Erica, you were saying, going back to your adopted daughter, that if somebody could have identified the core conflict within her, then that issue could have been avoided if it was addressed, especially if it was, shortly after birth or even prenatal, because that is visible in the chart. And then if you can bring it up and you can have therapy and deal with the core issue, then the disease does not necessarily manifest at all.
Well, that's a very good point. When I was a young astrologer, I was dealing with a very good friend of mine, had a little baby, and the baby was a Libra, and the Libra Mercury was really messed up with Uranus, which meant that the child was not ready to handle tremendous amount of universal energy. The child could not stop the fact that this powerful Uranian energy was pouring through it, but the child had a baby nervous system. So I didn't know what to do, and I was able to soothe her a little bit and explain a little bit in that. So I wrote down the dates for her of the next 4 years, when that Mercury would be hit by Mars, when it would be hit by the sun, when it would be hit by other planets. And I said, this is not a curse. This doesn't mean it has to happen, but I want you to be aware during these times something could pop up. And don't you know it, she used that on her calendar, and almost every time where there was that written on the calendar, the child did act up, which can be comforting because you can expect it, see it, and let it pass without freaking out. So you're exactly right about Mercury and the nervous system. Now here's another one that's really fascinating, and I don't have all the answers because as you get through the zodiac, it becomes more complex. The moon in Cancer. The moon in Cancer people, almost always the females have large breasts. Even the men or the women, they'll have a large chest cavity. The moon rules the breast area. It rules the stomach area. Those are pretty much the two areas. I don't know why there's such a prevalence of breast cancer. I'm not going to go out on a limb and guess. Now, I've seen charts of Geminis or Virgos who are known for small bosom, but their moon placement is so strong. If the moon placement is strong, it doesn't matter what your sun sign is, you'll have larger breasts. Just like the smaller end is when the planets are in Gemini or Virgo. That's what tends towards the smaller, the Gemini and the Virgo. I don't know about you, Elke. Some people can do other signs better than I, but Cancers generally have a kind of worried look on their face. I know you are one, and you're not a typical one, but what do you see when you see Cancers? Because you don't have a worried look. But what do you see when you see them?
Well, it's the softness and the weight of the world is on their shoulders, you know. But I want to say something which is really important to know. It is like you can look at the signs, and I personally don't exhibit all the classic signs of what you should have. You know, I don't look like the way I should look theoretically. And what it is the chart has to be looked at as a whole, as a one organic whole. You cannot just assume just because you're a Cancer that you will get breast cancer. Absolutely not. There is way more involved in that than just the one thing. And it is crucial to understand that because people worry a lot. You know, especially if you're Cancer, you just worry. That's your middle name, you know.
Yeah, that's true.
But you can't worry about that. You have to have somebody look at your chart as a whole because every single planet moderates the expression of the whole. So you know that
your chart's extremely strong with Jupiter and with Gemini. We're not going to bring it up now, but your chart has a lot of Jupiter and Gemini. So you would have strong Sagittarian or Geminian issues in your body shape, etc.
And theoretically, I should be fat. All the astrologers I've seen, they looked at me like, yo, what's wrong? Because Jupiter is growth and expansion, and you just love whatever you love. Mm-hmm. But my saving grace is that it's not in the house of food. So,
another thing about Sag is uncannily they'll have a, quote, average body shape, but disproportionately wide hips.
Absolutely.
Very, very common. Now, that's not all Sages, but when you see a body that is shaped rather average, but the hips seem to be a little beyond average, that is somebody with a strong Jupiter or strong Sag, which we'll get to that. But Cancers, I mean, you being a Cancer, what do you notice about the rulership of, for instance, I remember dating a Cancer woman at one time, and every time we'd get ready to go party, she would get sick. And I finally figured out she didn't want to be at the party. She didn't want to socialize. She wanted to be safe at home, and she would get sick in the stomach.
Yes,
What do you notice with the Cancer in the stomach?
Same thing. We just had Mars, transiting Mars is in Cancer right now, and it hit me in the stomach. I had stomach pains. So if you have pains all of a sudden somewhere, it's usually Mars aggravating an area in your chart that is just vulnerable. You know?
When Eric asked, what's the house of food? Is that the sixth house?
Yeah, there's part of it is, yeah, but
a lot of the sixth house is your
yeah,
your
yeah.
dietary habits, your kind of food you like.
It's more the Virgo house. It's the the sixth house, and also Taurus though. The second house is also nutrition and what you like to eat, because it's the things that you love, you know, your values.
I've never in my life seen a Taurus that didn't love to eat.
Exactly.
They
So
love to eat.
yeah,
they love it.
Yeah, and they love sweets too, and that's a Venus thing. So well, you know.
You remember the guy named Richmond who was on the network? He'd have those challenges on how much food he could eat. He'd go to these bars and, can you eat 650 wings? And he'd try it and he'd stuff it in. He was a Taurus and he got really sick, and his doctors had to have a talk with him. He started getting cardio problems. Do you remember the guy? His last name was Richmond. What was the name of the show? It was a stupid cable show where you try to out-eat everybody. Anyhow, Ray says num 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 because she has a Taurus moon. Okay, let's move on. It's very man versus food. Yes, John. Thank you very much. The next one's very intriguing and interesting. Why Leos are the heart and the spine? Well, the main reason Leos are the heart and the spine is because Leo is the center of everything, right? Leo's the sun. The sun is in the center. What's in the middle of your body but your spine and your heart? I mean, it doesn't mean you're going to have a heart attack. It doesn't mean you're going to have back problems. But I will tell you, I know a lot of Leos with a lot of back problems. And I do think it's because they're a Leo. What have you noticed, Elke?
Yes, absolutely. Spinal cord, bone marrow, but it also rules your vitality. So when I look at charts, you know, sometimes you look at the essential dignities in the chart and you can assess the planetary strength, but you know, it gets really complicated, you know.
Let me go to the side for a minute. I've been telling Liza that I want to go to DeLuca's, which is this very famous place in Pittsburgh that has these phenomenally sized breakfasts. And John just wrote to me that on one of his shows, he went to Lucas for breakfast, and they still have a plaque marking the bench where he sat and they recorded the show. Oh, my God. Go ahead, Elke. I'm sorry.
No, just vitality, and it rules the heart. So anxiety, palpitations, anything that you can think of to do with the heart, that's, you know, what's going to crop up. If you are so predisposed by other planetary signatures, and it's never just one thing in the chart, never.
That's exactly right. I cannot express enough how clear this is. I have knowledge of a person, and I'm not going to get into details and embarrass this person, but this person got sick of a certain part of our society. And I want you to pay attention to emotion. This person was very healthy, and this person couldn't stand seeing so-and-so anymore. He couldn't stand seeing it. Then I'm putting the emotion out there on purpose. And it just drove him nuts. The next day, he had a detached retina in the right eye. That's exactly how it happens. Your body is neutral. That's what the Course in Miracles tells us. And the eye said, well, what can I do for you? You don't want to see this anymore. Well, I could separate your eye. Today's blind in that eye. It's not a coincidence the next day that he had the separation. The body says, I will help you so you don't have to hear it. Now, what do you think it happens with people that get all emotional? Emotional, that's the energy, and they say, I don't want to hear that anymore. What do you think happens to their hearing? That's where it's at. What orders are you given to your body? And your body, you know, I'm not an expert healer, and there are many here. Your body's following suit.
But it's also how you speak to yourself and the things you say. If you have to catch yourself, and that's really what I want to get into, is how to tie it together, how to tie the emotions.
A very, very good point.
In with the physical, and it's like, if you notice yourself, and I do that quite often, and I have to really catch myself on it. It's like, I'm going to go crazy over this. This is driving me nuts. This is like, and so you perpetuate that thing, and eventually you're going to lose it, you know?
If you ever get mad and you ever get frustrated and you use the F word and you say F me, you'd better stop and talk to the universe and say, I did not mean that. Please don't. And I've just turned the microphone on for Karen DeBerry because she is a phenomenal healer. And I want Karen to talk to us some. She works so many magical things. I want her to talk to us some about how people say things and the body does it. Please. I'm just that way, and you're on the air.
Okay.
You're on the air. Go.
I'll tell you what I know.
What do you know?
When I do cranial sacral work, I unwind fascia. And fascia traps emotion. And so when you say things or when you stuff things, it literally gets wound into your being.
Wow.
And that's why we don't understand sometimes what we do to ourselves. I mean, Elke's right. It's a whole picture and it all works together. And she has total expertise as far as where this stuff can go. But I've been privileged to do some phenomenal work. And I have seen some phenomenal things happen with just nothing more than unwinding the fascia.
Oh, I can attest to that because she worked on me for 6 days, and she'd work on something down by my foot and it would fix something in my shoulder. And it's unbelievable, and she just understands the system. But what do you see, Karen? What are the common mantras that people keep saying that really hurt their body? What are they saying to themselves?
Well, one of their famous things is, I'm so stupid. I mean, that's, that was the stupidest thing in the world I could have done. And so you give your body permission to do something stupid, or you do something stupid, you enact that out physically. And that's the first thing that comes to mind, because I've seen it time after time after time after time. And that's the number one thing. And the other thing, people that are dealing with weight issues, their self-talk is horrible. And they say, I'm so embarrassed of the way I look. So they continue to be embarrassed by the way they look.
What about the people with the chronic fatigue, and what's the other one that's just like it?
Fibromyalgia.
Yeah, what about them? And when I see it, it's almost always Saturn and Neptune, and they're putting themselves down. They're stopping themselves. They're discouraged. They're repeating discouragement from their parents or a past life. What do you see with that?
Those are actually diseases of toxicity, and what happens is, and it goes in line with what you're saying, you have toxic thoughts or feelings or whatever, and you plant them in these areas. Your body doesn't have any other place to put them, and so it plants them in those areas, and that's the outcome of it.
Well, if any of you can get to Florida and see her, I really recommend it, because she will dig in you like it's a coal mine, and she will go to the spot, and she will not hurt you. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable.
What I actually do, Rick, is I talk to the body.
Well, you sure got it listening.
I really do. I pray, and when I put my hands on somebody, I ask them.
Mhm.
I go underneath their conscious and talk to their semi-conscious, and it tells me, and it just draws me into whatever area I need to know. And Elke, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about.
She also puts her head in her hands and handles you. The cranial work that she does, you can't even believe that there's all these shifting little plates in your head. Now it's affecting you. Anyhow, thank you very much for that part of it. I want to get into the next part. Thank you. Virgos. Virgos, without a doubt, and I have a lot of Virgos, without a doubt, 85% of them, in my opinion, have trouble with the intestinal area. It is, in my opinion, the most common illness in the zodiac is Virgos and the intestines. And I think I know why. I think I do. You can chew on this and spit it out if you don't like it. But they commonly have very healthy bodies. They do tend towards hyperactivity in the nervous system. But one reason they're so healthy is because they're so self-made. If there's a problem, they jump up and they fix it. They take responsibility for their energy. But their intestinal areas take a hit. Now, here's why I think it happens. I wrote an article once called Who Goes with the Flow and Who Doesn't Go with the Flow? And it was really intriguing because I started to think about this, and I started to see how Americans really aren't going with the flow, and they really aren't fluid like a Pisces is. And who really goes with the flow but the water sign? The Cancers go with the flow. The Pisces go with the flow. The Scorpios sometimes go with the flow. The Taurus go with the flow. The ones that don't go with the flow in general are the Capricorns and the Virgos. They are generally pretty much into control. Not all of them. In the Gemini or the Virgos about stop it, fix it. The Capricorns stop it, make sure. So when you're stopping things, I mean, most Capricorns end up with problems like arthritis, bad knees. It has to do with control and lack of flexibility. Virgos, I picture a conveyor belt. And the conveyor belt is a lot like life. And things are going by like on the conveyor belt. And a Pisces is just sitting there watching that conveyor belt, and all these wonderful things are crashing off the end, and they're not even noticing it, but that's their own problem. But largely they go with the flow. But what the Virgo does is stop the conveyor belt. Stop it, fix it, stop it, fix it, stop it, fix it, fix it, fix it, fix it, stop it, stop it. Well, what do you think your intestinal system does to you when you give a herky-jerky methods to it? And if you're around a Virgo or a lot of Virgos, you'll feel this energy in their life. Stop it, fix it, stop it, fix it. What I try to do with Virgos, number one, is this. Turn it into, let's stop that, let's fix it. Instead of, stop it, fix it. Take the frenetic part out. Let's just calm it down a little bit first. Because when you try to stop it, you're not going to do it. But I really think that that's what causes Crohn's disease. I'm not a doctor. I think it's what causes these different illnesses of the intestinal area. Elke, what do you think?
It depends. Again, it depends on the underlying conflict that's there. Like Crohn's would be more like when we look at stuff medically, we assign qualities also to the signs, and so if there's a lot of heat in the chart, then that would be expressed as inflammation, a lot of Martian qualities, and that would cause inflammation in the Virgo part in the intestines. There's other things like if you retain like diverticulitis, that's like an outpouching, and that's something where, you know, a piece of fecal material would be retained in a pouch. So that's a whole different area altogether. So there's all different kinds of mechanisms that underlie the whole thing.
Well, why do you think the Virgo tends towards injury in that area?
Well, because of what you just said, because of this having to retain and trying to control. You know, and for one thing, that's very common is people with strong Pluto-Uranus signatures. There is a problem with the contractility of the intestines, which is expressed as IBS. IBS is really common now, and the doctors can't figure out where it's coming from. But where it is actually coming from is from the nerve impulses from the brain that are being sent to the intestines, and the intestines, you know, contract, and like you said, that erratic kind of quality, that disrupted kind of quality, and it's very common, and that's the origin of it. But it starts up here, and when the doctors say it's all in your head, they are actually correct. It's just that the way that they say it is really stupid, in my you know, in my view.
We just got a question from Ray to you. It says, what should we say to ourselves to heal?
The biggest thing to say to yourself and to heal is to calm down, to accept what happens in your life and not to fight it.
Oh, that's a very good point.
Acceptance is the #1 key issue, because anything that you can't accept and that you have to fight will create a conflict, will create inflammation, will create an issue. And the #1 thing how to accept this is to meditate and to be mindful.
Well, I have had a lot of success watching Virgo women. The men won't come to astrologers because it's for silly people that make excuses and live by the planets, which I don't blame them. But the women come, and the women really love astrology. A lot of women, Virgo women, are making success by letting Neptune in. Now that Neptune is in Pisces, it's opposite Virgo. And when you see these Virgo women start to relax, they have high intelligence, but you see the intestinal problems going away.
Well, it's let go and let God.
Yep.
It is handing your conflicts that you try so desperately to resolve over to a higher power, and you just let it go, and your intestine relaxes. If you pay attention to yourself and you get angry or upset about something, it hits you in your stomach first. And then you breathe, you actually catch yourself, and you catch that feeling in your stomach, and you breathe into it. You watch the feeling, the stomach relax, and you can breathe again. That's really the problem for Virgo as well.
Well, that's a good answer.
Your intestines unravel themselves in a way. And the people that are so hung up on it, they're actually the ones that'll need an enema, because they're so...
Well, what's so interesting, and I really think we can't say this enough, and I put it in my book tons of times, is when you let go and you ease up to the Virgo mind, to the Capricorn mind, you look lazy. You look like a bum. You look like you're letting go. You're not dealing with stuff. But that's not true. Sometimes when you let things go, you're like the Dalai Lama, you're letting things flow, and it's beautiful. Other times people let things go, and they are being a bum. They're just escaping. So that's where the dichotomy comes in. Very, very good stuff.
But we all have Virgo in our chart. So look at the Virgo area in your chart and see what it is that you have to let go of. And if you have a planet there, fine. Then it's a little bit more of an issue. If you don't, then it's not so much something that you have to concentrate on.
The next sign I don't know a lot about, Libra. Libra rules the kidneys
And the lower back.
The bloodstream, and the lower back. Figure that one out. The bloodstream, Venusian, the lower back, the kidneys. Comments?
Well, it's the set of twos. If you have a conflict and you catch yourself going around, I'm so pissed off. I am pissed off at this person. Guarantee you, if you have issues in your chart with Libran issues, you can very well come down with a kidney infection or even in Scorpio a bladder infection. Same thing, you know.
Yeah, but Libras are not usually the sign that's pissed off.
No, but they try to do right by everybody. They try to please everybody, you know.
Yeah, that's true.
And
That's true. They keep it inside. That's right.
It also rules the ovaries. Anything to do with twos, you know, the balance, fluids, the hormones. Even
what do the kidneys do? Filter the blood?
The kidneys filter the blood. Yes. Yes.
So how is that a Libra quality, to filter the blood and separate? I guess it's their judgment of separating the good from the bad.
It's a process of elimination. You have to eliminate something.
What do you think, Karen?
The kidneys actually are they do filter. The biggest organ that filters our blood is the liver.
Liver.
Yeah, and there are 3 parts to the liver? Aren't there 3 sections to the liver?
I don't know.
Depends. There's people that have 3 lobes. You know, I have 3 lobes. So
that's what I was thinking of. You have the kidneys filter the fluids in the body. All the fluids.
Yes.
Okay, let's move on to Scorpio because we really have a lot to do here. The Scorpio, the sexual area of the body, the excrement, the removal of waste from the body, colon cancer, prostate issues, these things, ovaries sometimes, these things have a lot to do with deep guilt. Oftentimes, you'll read a lot about talking about guilt through sexuality. Dark issues can come up around sexuality, but I've known a lot of Scorpios who have issues like this. But what's really common is they'll get a cyst or they'll get a warning, and then it'll subside. I'm not an expert on the illness cancer, so I don't really know what causes it. But what do you find, Elke, with the sign of Scorpio?
You same thing, you know, bladder elimination issues, the lower, the deeper stuff. But it's Virgo is more diarrhea, whereas Scorpio is more constipation. Okay, Scorpio is retaining because Scorpios have to go really, really deep, and they gotta mull the stuff over. So if you think you gotta keep that stuff in your intestine and to squeeze every little bit of nutrition out of it that you can, right?
I like the face you made. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Well, that's what you look like, right?
Well, that concentrated look. To go backward a little bit, because I forget, the Libra body's very pretty usually. Usually they're very attractive people. They almost always, I'll shake my head like this, almost always marry somebody attractive. Almost always. The Scorpios, the males will have a hairy chest, even hairy legs. The Scorpios commonly, not always, they commonly have a face that is skull-like. You can see the skull clearly within the face. Another thing that's Scorpionic is very pale skin. Do you remember the woman that was Sally something? She played on the original, the Korean medics, what are they called? MASH. The woman that played the original female star, she really looked, her face was very Scorpionic and very skull-like. Sally, what was her name? I can't remember. Anyhow, you'll see that with Scorpios.
But I wanted to, that the reason I thought I was going to say something and I forgot what I was going to say, and I remembered the cyst part. The difference between tumors and cysts is if you have aspects to Jupiter, Jupiter causes growth, and if there's growth and aspects with your in the sixth house and stuff, and then you end up, your body ends up packing toxins in the areas. It's like little garbage cans in the body that are cysts, and the body doesn't know what to do with it. But there is tumors. That's a whole different story. Those are usually Pluto contacts, usually, but not always, Pluto is more the inherited stuff where stuff goes wrong with the DNA, or the cells just develop abnormally. But cyst development is more to do with Jupiter.
That's interesting. Let's move on. Sagittarius is very intriguing. You're moving down the body now. The hips, the thighs, the liver. Now, when somebody has a problem with their thighs, with the upper bones, with those muscles, with the hips, hip replacement, I look in the charts, and I'm not going to go into detail in the charts, and I almost always find lack of movement. The big motors in your body are your upper thighs, your hips. And if you're not moving and you're not progressing and you're not moving, it will come up and show injury to that area of the body. That's what I have found. I don't know why it's the liver, but big motoring is the issue here, which also shows you why it's common for Sag animals or Sagittarian people to have unusually large thighs, etc. Capricorn. Capricorn is really intriguing. The hard part, it's a tough part of the zodiac, and it rules the hard parts of the body. The knees, the teeth, all the bones, the joints, all the skin, because the skin surrounds the body. When I've had Capricorn issues, I've had trouble in all those areas. And when you have teeth problems, if Saturn's on you, do not mess around. Go to the dentist. If Saturn's around, Saturn's very real. Saturn makes things real. It's not your imagination. Go to the doctor. Have them look at it, because it could be an abscess or something like that. The number one problem with Capricorn, since it is traditional, since it doesn't take risk, since it's so careful, that's why it affects the knees. And the number one thing people need to do, Sagittarius with sciatica, yes. Capricorn, they need to flex. Capricorn is the sign it needs to go to yoga. Anything on that, Elke?
Yep, same thing. It's that rigidity.
Rigidity.
Rigidity. It's a fixedness. Fixity. It's a cold sign. It's very cold. Everything is congealed and hardened and fixed, and that's why it's ruled by Saturn. And whatever Saturn touches becomes hardened and fixed. And the fascia becomes constricted. It can become constricted too. Depending on what's going on in the chart.
Makes a lot of sense. I'm trying to get through to I failed to mention that Sandy Easter is with us tonight, and she will be our guinea pig for about 5 or 10 after I will be doing her chart for the group and cut it off of YouTube. Okay, so in Capricorn, it's about loosening up, but you'll notice that where's the body at with the bones? Without the bones and the joints and the knees, you don't have any structure. So Saturn's important, but again, you can't have too much Saturn. Saturn has to work in sync with Jupiter. It has to work in sync with Uranus. And it has to work in sync with letting go. Being tight, being tough,
yes,
but also letting go, which is why I think that's correct, yes. Okay, Aquarius. And as you get to the lower part of the body, it's unusual, like with me today. Aquarius is interesting because it's two areas of the body, between the knee and the foot, the ankle. Today I got it right on the side of my calf. Broken ankles, twisted ankles, sprained ankles, those are very Aquarian. When people have those, almost always, in my experience, is because they are suppressing their individuality. Aquarius is, I want to be me, I want to be myself, and when you stop yourself, that's when you're very prone to having problems in those areas of the body. I'm not sure why it's that area. The other area, which is very common for Aquarius, is the circulation. Elke?
Yes, nervous system, ankles, calves. It also rules the mitochondria in the body, which are communication centers. They're important. Electrical impulses. Aquarius is ruled by Uranus. Uranus rules the electricity in the body more so than Mercury. Mercury rules the nerves. Uranus rules the electricity in the body.
Boy, does that make sense? Because with my MS and my Sun Uranus right across the chart, right across the ascendant, I'm battling all the time with just phenomenal lightning bolts of energies come to me. And I go to bed at night and I'm just alert and awake. So
anything shock-like. It's just anything twitchy, shock-like, that just,
Spastic. Spasms. That's right. Now, the final energy, which is really intriguing before I get to Sandy's chart, is Pisces. And the feet, this is what I know, the feet, the toes, and the liquids of the body. Since that's... what do you have, Elke?
Immune system. The immune system is ruled by a Neptune. Everything to do with allergies, anything wet, watery, the lymphatics, all ruled by Pisces.
We're watching here at Pittsburgh our star athlete catcher, Cervelli, who's a catcher. He's a Pisces, rule of the feet. Francisco Cervelli. He's had some concussions. But I started hearing on the sports show talking about series and batteries of tests. And I knew he was going through so many tests, I knew Neptune was on him. Then I looked at his chart. Neptune was at 15, his sun's at 15. When you have a large Neptune, and I want you to hear me clearly because I'm not a doctor, it's very common when Neptune is on any one of your planets that the illness is not real. Now, I'm not a doctor, and if it's real, go see a doctor. But it's very common that it's hypersensitivity, because what Neptune does is it turns up your sensitivity. You're not used to eating this food without a problem. You eat this food, you don't have a problem. You eat this food this day, and you have a problem. You drink this stuff, no problem. You drink this stuff this day, and you have a problem. You all of a sudden, you get hay fever. You'll see people get cat allergies. You'll see people with cat allergies go away. So Neptune has a lot to do with your sensitivity, and the illnesses can be very real. But in most cases, you go to the doctor sees the symptoms, the doctor cannot find out what it is. They do a lot of guessing. They talk a lot about viruses, and there's nothing there. Okay?
Remember when Michael Weir? Neptune also rules psychic attacks. It rules anything psychosomatic. It rules spirit possessions. As stupid as it sounds, but it is very real, because you can get inundated by stuff that sticks inside of you, and if you see the right person, you can walk out of there all better. And so, the immune system is very strong. It's hard to diagnose diseases, is Neptune as well. Doesn't mean you don't have a disease. Oftentimes, it's not a disease per se. It's like Rick said. But it can also mean diseases that are very complex and difficult to diagnose.
Well, very well put. Now, like I say, I'm not a doctor. I'm just trying to help and educate you. But I've seen people, blood coming out of their nose for no reason. They're allergic to stuff for no reason.
Yeah.
The advantage of a Neptune transit is that you become more sensitive. The harm of a Neptune transit is that you become more sensitive. But you can't stop the fact that you're going to be more sensitive. The big planets, you cannot stop their energy. You cannot stop their energy. It's going to come over you. It's going to come through you. it's coming up through you. But you can learn how to channel them and use them. So during a Neptune time, it's very important to respect yourself. Say, I'm becoming more sensitive. Refine your diet, do purges, do fasts, etc., etc. But realize that it's very real what's happening and be careful with it. Be gentle with yourself, yes. Okay, I'm going to stop here and turn off our what do we call them? Our YouTubers, and get to my individual chart. Bye, YouTubers. Thanks for episode 40.